when you start to look into the nuances of things, and when you start to examine, if you are going on some sort of a, you know, holistic or a spiritual path when you're older, you do start to get into the subtleties of like, why do I have that behavior then? Or why am I tended that way? If absolutely everything was fine and lovely and plain sailing and safe and secure and all of that, where does this come from?
I have this like, right, rise up like a phoenix, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show this, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show myself. And this is my coping mechanism to disappointment and rejection.
It's your little inner Madiha that gives you a kick up the bum.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back to Soul Awakenings with Madiha Sosan podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Juanita Margerison.
Hi, I'm Juanita Margerison, and I am the director of the Resonance Centre. So we are a holistic wellbeing hub dedicated to powerful positive change, based here in M11 in Manchester. And we are also now the official sponsor of Soul Awakenings with Madiha Sosan podcast.
Hi, Juanita.
Hi.
Oh my God.
I'm excited.
I'm excited for this as well. So yeah, like, oh my God, I don't know where to start because we've known each other for a while.
For a while, right? Yeah, absolutely.
For a while. And Juanita's actually sponsoring the podcast, so the Resonance Centre.
Yeah, the Resonance Centre sponsoring the podcast. Yeah. That's exciting too.
Tell me, from your perspective, where did we meet? Where did we meet?
I can't actually remember or pinpoint exactly when I met you. The first time that I remember hanging out with you properly was at the Soul Tribe Festival a couple of years ago. Yeah. But I already felt like I knew you then from somewhere else. There was already...
Flourish.
Ah,
so we,
yes, okay, so it might have been through Flourish.
Yeah, so we had connections already.
There was already a familiarity, but I didn't know you well.
Yeah.
Then we obviously spoke a little bit more and you came to that talk that I gave in a hut.
Yes.
Which was great.
Which was amazing. It was like, yeah, it was just really nice to connect with you then. It was like, I loved your energy. I was like, oh, this person, she's got, we kind of vibe off like same energy. You know,
similar energy, that is true. Yeah, no, likewise.
It just came together. And then I went off and did my own thing. And then I just came 2 years later. I was like, oh, have you got a space? I just won that award. And you're like, yeah, man.
Yes, definitely. Let's do it. Well, I've been watching, like I said before, kind of the success and the growth of the podcast, like from a distance, obviously also at the same time growing and building and kind of making the centre more sustainable. Yeah. It feels like we've both had like a good idea that we've then sort of cultivated from very small beginnings in you know, kind of in our bedrooms kind of a way. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I suppose really in that sense, yeah, because the Resonance Centre started during lockdown. So it was very much built from my lounge with co-director Ralph. And it feels like we've both watched each other's ideas, just kind of like upward spiral into
and the fact that we won an award literally like a couple of weeks out, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. But I'm so excited to, you know, have you on this podcast and know about your journey actually, because I know who Juanita is on the surface. Resonance Centre director. I was like, who is Juanita?
Yeah, that's very much what I've become over the last few years. It's strange. I'll tell you all my story.
Right. So our listeners don't know who you are, right?
Yes.
I know who you are. Mm-hmm. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am Juanita Margerison, and I am one of the directors of the Resonance Centre, which is, how do we best describe ourselves? We are a holistic wellbeing hub dedicated to powerful positive change. That's pretty much how we sum it up in a sentence. I'm a yoga teacher. I teach vinyasa, yin yoga, meditation, but also had my own journey, which is obviously what led to the idea for and the beginnings of the Resonance Centre. So yeah, that's in short, that's what I am. But now obviously, more known for being like Mrs. Res, really, cropping up all the time on my lives and doing all of that stuff. But yeah, essentially a yoga teacher and someone that's very, very passionate about the potency of holistic modalities for healing the kind of problems that we're now faced with. So, yeah.
So, okay, so we know about the Resonance Center. We know about who you are. Tell me about let's take you back to childhood.
Okay.
Tell me about your upbringing. What was your environment like?
So my environment, I was very lucky, really. My life, my early life, my childhood was very, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you start to talk about childhood, and especially when you have gone very much down a holistic path, very much down a trauma-informed path, that kind of thing, there's nuances to things, isn't there? So it's like, I would absolutely sit here and say that I definitely had a very loving, very, safe and secure childhood, which I did. I have two, my parents are great, wonderful people who I adore. But when you get into the subtleties of things, I had two brothers as well, also great. And yeah, a very, very normal and happy childhood, I would say. But when you start to look into the nuances of things, and when you start to examine, if you are going on some sort of a, a holistic or a spiritual path when you're older, you do start to get into the subtleties of like, why do I have that behavior then? Or why am I tended that way? If absolutely everything was fine and lovely and plain sailing and safe and secure and all of that, where does this come from? So I think through personal inquiry and sort of self-knowledge, things kind of, you have revelations along the way. And I think one thing that I've spoken to you about is that I am now aware that my mum actually lost her father when she was only 2 months pregnant with me. Which, as we now know, the nervous state of the mother during pregnancy, during, those early few months of childhood, definitely have an impact on the baseline state of, the growing infant. And I think I feel that. And I think that's why, despite having what outwardly looks like very, very happy, very secure kind of upbringing, definitely had some experiences and symptoms with my own nervous system that needed investigating. And when you look back, I mean, I could get trapped in a cycle digging around for something awful that happened to me a long time ago. And I genuinely don't believe that it did. And I think to dig and to scurry around looking for things in the psyche, I think, we do have the ability to create false memories and things like that. I'm not, keen to do that. But when you then go back earlier than childhood, earlier than what's happened to you in this life, that definitely, I think, plays a part. So my early childhood was very secure and very happy, but there's definitely stuff that has led me on this journey and on this path. Yeah, for sure.
Because I could resonate with what you said about like being in your mom's womb, because we both know what internal family system is, and I got in one of the sessions where I said to my friend Natasha, who's an amazing IFS therapist, I said to her, I don't feel belong in this world. I feel a bit like I'm different. I don't feel belong. And she's like, all right, let's go in those parts and see what happens. And it just went on. And like, obviously you go in your parts and you do a lot of parts work. You ask your parts, like, to step away if you hold, there's an exile parts that's in the way. And it turned out that the not belonging in the world of feeling different is stemmed from when I was in my mom's womb. So there was my part in my mom's womb feeling that, because she's feeling that on the external.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, and I think when you start to examine it, my mum will have obviously invariably experienced one of the greater losses that a person does experience in their life while I was forming. That to some degree will be encoded. It's nobody's fault. This is not it's just a case of figuring out why, so that we can then obviously, you can't change a habit before you become aware of it. It's the same sort of thing. You can't really start to shift things until you've shone the light of awareness onto them. So it's just, that's purely, what that was about and what that was for. But I think also, you've got to look at the time as well. This would have been 1983, where perhaps people didn't readily have access to the kind of active coping mechanisms that are becoming more normal now. It's sort of, if I was going through a stress or a grief, I'd be on my yoga mat a lot more regularly. I might be looking into, you know, somatic movement. I might be having, you know, regular massage, or breath work, but I'd be seeking things out that are active, and that, because we now have that knowledge of knowing, right, well, this is what's happening to my nervous system because of the, you know, what's happening around me. And we have those coping mechanisms. They're around us. They're readily available. They're becoming more popular. It is what the Resonance Centre is all about. But 1983, not so much. And you think, I think a lot of people were having to just cope, you know, and that's human history, isn't it? It's only now that we are starting to have these conversations and starting to have this understanding.
Yeah, but
very exciting time to be alive in that respect.
It is. And but also it's like the technologies come in. What was that coping mechanism? Was it work? What was it?
I think it was just more passive coping mechanisms, wasn't it? I mean, we've spoken about this before, but I think what's previously been described as, you know, like we just have like people in a family, like quirky personalities, like, oh, it's Uncle Bob, he always drinks vodka for breakfast, don't worry about it. Those kind of behaviours now, under the light that we shine on things, would be like, well, that's unhealthy. You know, we're starting to label those things. Now, I'm not saying that labelling is necessarily over-labelling and is necessarily the right way to go. But what I'm saying is we are recognising now that what might have at one time just been passed off as, you know, someone's personality, or it's just what they do, or not really commenting at all on, you know, how people cope. I think passive coping mechanisms have been very normal for a very long time. You know, if you go back to sort of, you know, Victorian England, you know, alcoholism was pretty normal in most, you know, like working class households. I think we've always been coping. Human beings, for as long as we've had nervous systems, have experienced difficulties with them and have, you know, reached for some solace outside of ourselves. But it's only now that we have the rhetoric to be like, okay, you know, and we've spoken about this before, you know, it's not that like PTSD is newly invented. It's just that, you know, in the war, we didn't have that rhetoric because it hadn't sort of been coined yet. So it was called shell shock. If you go back further and you go to, you know, the Greek writings, the people that came back from the Trojan War were described as having soldier's heart. It was just you know, they weren't functioning correctly. And you're like, oh, okay.
They're functioning on a survival mode. So when you're in war, you're constantly, your system's on alert, like, I gotta be alert and focused and strong, be courageous.
Absolutely.
And then they once that stops, or there's a little bit of gap, their emotional state collapses, their body collapses.
It's a complete overwhelm, yeah. And it often happens in, you know, situations where perhaps fighting back or escaping isn't an option, you know, and then it's kind of held. You're not in a position to be the agent of your own safety and to successfully complete your stress cycle like you're meant to be able to. And therefore there's a, you know, a kind of a shutdown and a disconnect. And that's when left brain's not storing memories chronologically, and therefore you do, in essence, a flashback, a memory that should have been placed appropriately in your filing cabinet marked past, that's actually rocking up right here and now in your present and causing you a lot of problems. So it's, and I think that's the thing. I think when you start to talk about this stuff, people have this kind of tendency to think, well, if people never had that in my day, and where's this all come from? And it's, you know, just the snowflake generation not coping with anything. And it's like, well, humans have always been humans. Symptoms have always been symptoms. What we've called them and what we've recognized them as, you know, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that if you had really chronic depression, you'd probably be put in the madhouse. It's only that the rhetoric's changed, how we treat these things has changed. But I do think that, the best way forward is with intelligence, knowledge, understanding of how it works. And then you can actually find tangible solutions rather than just punishing the negative behaviours that come off the back of someone with a dysregulated nervous system who's acting out or trying to soothe themselves, or, you know, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think it's like, again, parts kind of giving them spaces that it's okay if your coping mechanisms is like going on social media or drinking on that kind of aspect, because then if we're teaching them that, oh, it's not okay to be on social media when you're stressed out or when you have emotional blockage, they feel shame and guilt.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that builds up inside of you.
All totally. I think that's the thing, isn't it? When we start to talk about That's why I'm using the words active and passive coping mechanisms, so that it isn't good and bad coping mechanisms. By active, what we mean is the ones that you are choosing to do deliberately that will be beneficial to your long-term health, or certainly won't undermine your long-term health. Passive are the ones that just happen to us and people don't know how they pick them up. You know, maybe that's the drinking or smoking or drugs or gambling or sex addiction, shopping, whatever it might. The ones that generally provide a bit of a dopamine hit and comfort for now, but ultimately, if you examine them over a long period of time, they're probably undermining our overall health. So they're the ones that generally, if someone was being judgmental, you'd say, well, they're the bad ones. They're bad coping mechanisms. Where over here, yoga and meditation, these are good coping mechanisms. And I think the problem with judging them as good or bad is exactly that, is that nobody's getting out of a bad habit through shame and being made overly aware of the thing they shouldn't be doing. And it's not supportive of any kind of an upward spiral at all. Coping mechanisms are coping mechanisms. And if you've coped up until this point and you're here and you're still breathing, then they have worked to some degree. Now, I mean, like your nervous system ultimately, obviously it's doing a lot all the time, constantly, but it has one ultimate job, which is to keep you alive, which is why in an emergency, it's making the judgment call far quicker than you have time to cognitively think all the options through. So if at some point in your life that nervous system has needed something, or you've got the belief that it's needed something to take the edge off, to help you cope, to get you through till tomorrow, to stop you from doing something radical, and you're still here, didn't not work, did it? So I'm not really about shaming anyone's coping mechanisms. If you're here and you're breathing and there's still potential for powerful positive change, then you've coped and your mechanisms have served you in some way. But now from this point, when we look at them, if we can start to be conscious about it, so we can sort of say, okay, well, this one's going to hurt me. If I can flip it and try one that's more conscious, more deliberate, that's going to benefit me long term, that's all it really is. This isn't about shaming anyone's coping mechanisms or what they've had to do for themselves up until this point. And actually, when we were first doing the Integrating Self course, which was the first course funded by Manchester Council on healing trauma holistically, that was the first thing we started the course with, because obviously when people are arriving with, they've been living for a long time with symptoms of trauma, there might be all kinds of different coping mechanisms in that one room that nobody would be openly going, oh, I have to do this, by the way, every day. And I think it's really important that we take the edge off that and literally say, whatever anyone has had to do up until this point, there is literally no blame, no shame and no judgment at all.
First and foremost, they need to work on that before they want to work on the other stuff. The shame and the guilt and the blame.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a conversation with a person who works within the NHS who still has multiple passive coping mechanisms and feels a huge amount of shame about any of their colleagues finding out because they work in professional healthcare. And my conversation that I had was, do you think that you are the only member of NHS team, crew, who has a passive coping mechanism outside of work that they don't talk about in work? Like, what do you think? And she was like, it's unlikely, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it's unlikely. And actually, you know, when you actually note that person's story, they're actually remarkable to be functional, working, incredible, inspiring. It's sort of a real story of antifragility and post-traumatic growth, not just resilience, not just bouncing back to where you were before, but coming back bigger. But I don't want to say bigger, better, stronger, but you know what I mean? It's not just bouncing back to the original shape before the indentation was happened, but actually coming back, maybe alchemizing the damage into something really potent and really creative in the world.
There's certain awareness that we were just basically talking about. You know, I currently been going through some stuff on my own, right? And what I was telling my friend was that I have this side of me where something happens in my life, anything, I have this like, right, rise up like a phoenix, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show this, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show myself. And this is my coping mechanism to disappointment and rejection.
It's your little inner Madiha that gives you a kick up the bum.
Yeah. It's great because on the outside I do so much amazing stuff. Like I'm so in tune with it.
It's raining.
It's raining
in Manchester. How unusual! How unusual. No, do you know it's the reason why we have the lovely cotton mills? It's because cotton thrives in a moist atmosphere. So there you go.
So what I was saying is that there is that, I came into realization, I'm actually doing this through pain. I'm doing this through pain, and it's not actually, it is improving my life and I'm having like this rapid growth and I'm manifesting amazing things.
Yeah.
But I'm still in pain. I'm still in pain. What do I do with this?
I want to cuddle you.
Oh, no. So it's working and becoming aware of it and realizing it was like, okay, well, where's that pain point? Where do I look? Where do I look?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not, and it's really important actually, I suppose, that we clarify that the Resonance Centre does not focus on pain. It does not, its focus is not trauma. I actually really want a different phrase other than trauma informed, because I'm just finding myself saying the word trauma 50 times a day. I'm writing it, I'm typing it. And, whether it's talking about trauma informed facilitation, trauma informed space, trauma informed practice. And I do believe that it is necessary to have the knowledge and have that information in that setting. But can we not think of a better word so that we're not using that word constantly all the time?
You're kind of basically subconsciously saying that to yourself. I have trauma, I have trauma, I have trauma.
Absolutely. We don't want it, a little bit like when we first opened here, and obviously as a wellbeing centre, there was a lot of leaflets and posters and things started to arrive. And I just noticed that so many of them had the name of an illness that none of us would want as the main focus on this poster. And I thought, if I put those all over my reception downstairs, we've literally got the words of things we don't really want to focus on around us, like unhelpful mantra everywhere, like flu, diabetes, COVID, heart attack. I was like, I'm not denying the existence of these things. I'm not suggesting that we should try and ignore them or, or cure COVID with lavender or anything silly like that. But what I am saying is that as in a wellbeing centre, I want words like healing, health, alchemy, growth, antifragility, post-traumatic growth, resilience. They're the words that we need around us, and that's where the focus needs to be. And the entire centre really was, I suppose, if anything, based on this concept of, if you don't like how things are, you've got two choices, really. You can kind of spend your life kind of railing against, fighting against what it is that you don't like. Or you can crack on and go and create how you think it should look. It's like the choice between being pro or anti. You can be anti-war, or you could be pro-peace. They're very similar intonations, but one is an anti, and I made a sort of a commitment to myself a few years ago to just try not to be an anti-anything. Whatever it is that I'm anti, go find the opposite and join the pro. Because the difference it makes to how I think and how I feel and where my focus lies is huge. It's the difference between me getting bogged down with the world as it is and all the things that I don't like, or being able to have that clarity to take a step back and be like, right, well, what do I think it should look like then? Well, go and do that. That's the best use of your life, your joy, your passion, is to do that. Otherwise we can get buried in the things that we don't. And it's very easy to focus on the things we don't like. I mean, it's why we're so successful as a species, right? This ability to kind of scan the horizon in front of us and identify an obstacle that's going to hit us in the face so that we can get over it, so it doesn't wipe us out. That's, we have that ability to do that. But I think the modern human does get very much trapped.
Yes, fixated on it.
And if we are struggling with anything and our window of tolerance is really small, like that what we deem as a potential threat on the right, and it just becomes, we're so stuck in that all the time. And I think it's very important to hold joy and ease. This is the main thing at the Resonance Centre. It's not love, light and rainbows, let's all just be joyous all the time. That's not realistic. All emotions are very welcome here. Our sober dance floor on a Thursday night is a very alchemical cauldron for negative emotions and transmutes those beautifully. I think it's an understanding and an acceptance that joy and ease are the natural state of the human being. Not something you deserve when you get it right or you get the right job, house, partner, whatever it might be. It's how you are when nothing is off kilter. When nothing is, I'm looking for a better word, but when nothing's maladapted. When everything's like in its middle, in its homeostasis and at ease, that is our natural state. And that's not my, well, yes, I am asserting that. That is my assertion. But I think there is evidence to prove that that's correct. And that's because that's how we function optimally. So in nature, there's always a symbiosis, isn't it? And the human being functions at its A game when it's joyous and at ease, when things are calm and there's a sense of, I don't mean excitement or excitation. That's not what I mean by joy.
Contentment.
Absolutely. More you serotonin than you dopamine. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then there actually comes a time where actually the universe kind of just pushes you like, I'm going to isolate you a little bit to understand that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So one of our favorites, the holistic psychologist.
Yes.
She posted something yesterday about the cocoon phase.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
I haven't seen that.
I was like, yes, the cocoon phase. Yes, please. Can we not go down this route of believing that every time somebody goes inward, goes quiet, goes isolating, that is necessarily an illness, a disorder or depression? I'm like, that's where the healing lies.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
It's painful though. It's painful sometimes. But it's supposed to be painful.
I think somewhere on it, it's like going through the problem, isn't it? Like to get to the other side of it. But I think if you can not tolerate, is maybe only by being put in that position, like you say, when the universe does like sort of isolates you in that way, that you realize that it's only by going through that and realizing that it no longer has anything to scare you with, that you become like unmesswithable. Does that make sense? I was about to use a different word then, un-F-withable, but you know what I mean. And yes, I think that is part of the process. And I think that our world is very overstimulating as well. So I think it's almost a natural human response sometimes. Half of Silicon Valley are doing dopamine fasts and stuff. I think it's a natural response. I know that that's what happens to me. And I definitely don't consider it as depression. I'm like, no, I just need to close the curtains, have peaceful, quiet day, because I've had
it's a deep rest.
2 years of being super busy with the residents.
Yeah. Jim Carrey said deep rest. Yeah. Depression is deep rest.
I think I'm not going to make any bold claims that everyone that has depression just needs to rest, because obviously there's so many nuances when you get into that entire topic of mental health. But I do think definitely, certainly in my own case, low mood, feeling down, feeling hopeless, was a symptom of the fact that I'd created a life that I didn't actually like and that was not at all aligned with who I actually was, but I didn't actually know who I was at that point. So no wonder I'd created a life that suited my sort of outward persona that was keeping me safe. So obviously when that comes away and you don't know who the hell you are anymore, yeah, of course. You
lose that sense of identity as well, and then you gotta
for a period of time.
That. Yeah, you gotta create that. But I have found on my spiritual journey that this does not happen once. It doesn't happen twice.
You get to do it loads of times. Yeah. Great.
I'm actually currently, as we speak,
good. Back on the roller coaster. Cheers. Good. Yeah. Welcome back.
I was like, great. I'm in my dark night of the soul, and I'm openly like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. They said dark nights, right? What's all this? Nights. So many nights.
It's those winter nights. We go through it all the time. Like our season says it, right? Season says it's like the leaves fall in autumn, and then they come back in spring, and some are there like lush, and then they're back cocooning, winter, they're gone. Like, it's like, yeah.
The only difference between us and nature is that nature just doesn't judge itself for its hibernation. It doesn't judge itself for the difference between its summer and its winter. It's us, really. We don't know, have we been conditioned, or are we just averse to feelings that we don't like? But it feels like we do want to sort of be like, ooh, these are bad. Again, this categorization, this duality, this putting into brackets of good emotions, bad emotions. It's like, well, I don't think it's that simple. I think that we're designed to have an entire range of emotions. I think that I also don't believe that we were born just so that our emotions could cock our lives up. I don't think that's what they were there for. I think that, like anything in nature, if it has a feedback loop, a way of kind of like feeding information to itself, it's usually for the benefit of that thing. So I'm like, right, okay, well, that would mean that our emotions are here to in some way guide us. And they are, aren't they? On a really fundamental level. It's like, put your hand in the fire. Not going to do that again. It's like, that is a guide, that is not where you want to be. And I think that even the more subtle feelings are guides. My depression, if you want to call it that, was an absolute symptom of the fact that I was very unhappy doing what I was doing, and I needed to change it and do something else and find out who I was and go through a lot of healing and then find purpose. That was what that was telling me. And I had two choices. And actually, I was offered medication. And that was the moment, that was the deciding day, because I'm not suggesting that medication's bad. I know different people need to do what they need to do for themselves. But the situation I was in, and after having described what I'd described, that didn't seem like the logical solution to me at all. And I felt like I had a real decision to make that day. Was, do I embark now on this potentially slightly overly medicalized route if I keep going, or do I now need to use my own sort of intelligence and tenacity to try to figure this problem out? And I did feel quite isolated that day, because you sort of think, oh gosh, I've done what you meant to do. I've asked for help from the professionals, and I'm not happy with that answer, and there was nothing else that was being offered. And that day sparked an investigation into what is happiness.
Hey there, healers, wellness warriors, and holistic fans. Exciting news, we've just teamed up with Listening to Smile, a company all about healing through music. Imagine listening to music that doesn't just sound good, but actually makes you feel better. Now here's the deal. Just listening to that music for 20 minutes a day could make a huge difference to your mind, body, and soul. And guess what? You get 20% off their awesome albums with the code Soul Awakenings. But wait, there's more. Want to improve your practice, earn more, and keep your work safe? Then this program is for you. It's all about opening up new possibilities and protecting what you create. So, are you ready to get started? Head over to their website, www.listeningtosmile.com, and let's begin your journey to feeling great. Don't forget to use the code Soul Awakenings to save 20% at checkout. All of these links and the code will be added to the description below. Let's awaken those souls together. You just mentioned about your life before, who you were before. Tell me about that.
It's quite, I suppose really I've been a few things really. So my initial, growing up, I was very much interested in the arts. I was very creative. I was dancer, acting. It was very much that. So I went to arts educational schools in London, did my BA in acting. That feels like a lifetime ago. But so I was very much on that path of being a creative. But my family background and my dad and in business. And obviously when you leave drama school and you're sort of, a struggling actor and people are, getting jobs in ticket booths in theatres and different things, I sort of thought, well, I kind of want to crack on with doing something in the meantime. Like I'm still going to be able to act and do that stuff. So I started working in business, but just found that I was quite good at it. And then as the world, this is, I think, where life kind of took over. When the world is applauding you for being good at something and everyone's like, well, she's only 23, she's got her head screwed on and all of that kind of stuff. You just think, oh, I'm doing well. this is good. I should continue on this trajectory. So I did. And that was kind of life for, through my 20s, really, mainly. I had an incredibly interesting job with a very eccentric boss for a period of time, being a PA. That led me to spending a lot of time in courtrooms and that kind of a setting, like legal setting, which was really interesting. Not a normal experience for a layperson, but that it was an experience that I had. And then I ran my own business for a few years, kitchen and bedroom business. So again, it wasn't the running of a kitchen and bedroom company that I enjoyed. It was the creating. It was the designing a room that I could see in my mind's eye. And then a few weeks later, standing in it and being like, oh, it was the creative side of it. And I recognized that actually over time. But then it was my tendencies towards being a complete workaholic, a complete hothead. That's, it's just another trauma response, right? It's just what you throw yourself into and this kind of thing. But I mean, like I hit burnout in the most catastrophic way. Like I had really bad insomnia, chronic sinusitis, achy joints, things I shouldn't really have been experiencing at like 29, 30 years old. And such low mood towards the end of running my business when I was realizing that I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm damn sure it's not this, because I don't think I'm meant to feel like this every day. At the point where you're crying driving to work because you have to spend time there, it's like, yeah, that's not right. I don't think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So then came the point where I had to make a really bold decision. I think I've always been self-employed and I've always been running my own thing or doing my own thing. So I think sometimes you kind of skirt around the outside of things being identified. If I'd have had a full-time job in the state of health and the condition that I was in at that time, I have no doubt that somebody that I worked with or that was in charge of me would have been like, you're not right. And, this sort of thing. But it was my business. I was in charge of it. So it's like there's nobody's sending you to HR or recommending that you do this or, you do sort of skirt around the outside of it. And I did. And I had to make a bold decision of, do I just keep going even though I'm not well and everything's incredibly difficult? And a little bit like the opposite of serendipity, where you're on the wrong path and obstacles keep cropping up, like in bizarre places where you think like, yeah, this is cosmic in nature. This isn't just normal bad luck. And that was all very much that period of time. So I just had to make the bold decision where I sort of thought, you know what? Don't know what life on the other side of giving up the thing that I thought I'd be doing forever will look like. No idea. Huge leap off a cliff. All I really knew at the time was as long as I had enough sort of residual income from what I'd done before to just afford my yoga studio membership and my organic vegetables, that I'd be all right. That was all I knew at the time, and that the rest I would figure out as things started to feel better. And when I say organic vegetables, it's because this was when I first started to look into happiness and what is it, who's got it, how do you cultivate it, where do you get it? It kept leading me back to the same three groups of people, the Buddhists, the yogis and the plant-based eaters. And as an extremist and a hothead at the time, I was like, right, well, I'll do all three. So threw myself into juice fasting, hot yoga and meditation. But I think because I didn't skirt around the edges, trying to cure the effects of poor lifestyle with the turmeric root, because I went all in, really did see the radical effects that it could have like very, very quickly. And that was when I realized like, I think this is a decision that I have to make. I cannot. And obviously when you're, everything's very tightly wound and you are healing, throwing yourself into, and I mean, I was daily hot yoga. This was like, I was on a mission. Sometimes it wipes you out completely, like body. And I realized like, I don't think I can run my business and go this heavily into the healing path. And this is the one that I need more right now. So I'm going to have to let it go. And I have no idea what that means for my future. That was the scary bit. That
is hard.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Where you go through that night, the soul.
Well, yeah, absolutely. About, right? And that's also where that phrase comes in is of like, what if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? And it's like, you really have to lean into that. You're like, I'm going to fly, I'm going to fly, I'm going to fly. It's going to be all right. Don't know how I'm going to fly. I'm going to fly. But it's through the healing and through that clarity that you suddenly then, first of all, like yoga is a journey of the self, through the self, to the self. So you're learning about you, getting to know you, who you actually are. And I was so radically different from the person that I thought I was that it was like, okay, this is a process. And then, yeah, through that clarity, I sort of arrived at the fact that, you know, if you're okay and you've got what you need and you're not now driven by some societally influenced kind of ambition or desire, what is the logical thing is to try to improve the situation. And obviously looking at our healthcare model and how we go about doing things at the moment, it just made me realize that day that I went to the doctors, I absolutely should not have been handed, take these. What I should have been asked is, how are you living? What do you eat? You know, when was the last time you had a laugh? How do you socialize? There was a lot of questions that should have been asked about my wider life. All of the things that I did, go home, research, investigate, But like you say, it's that sort of, it was only from a place of like, there is literally no help.
Yeah.
I am going to have to fix this.
Yeah.
Or I'm going under.
Yeah.
There's no one's coming to help me. It's from that very nihilistic place.
It feels like a stripping away of something, like one by one, this part of you dies, and it's like, and then you got to even though you're going down a healthy path, it shouldn't be like but the way we're conditioned and programmed.
Totally. I think I'd have been very lost on that journey without yogic philosophy, because it's so right thinking, and that concept of joy and ease, always coming back to that. If I was doing something, or even my yoga practice itself, at the point where you are stressing yourself out to try to get to the thing or get to it's not serving its purpose anymore. The purpose was joy and ease. We're trying to get back to that. That's it. And I think that, it was very, very helpful. And I think also in self-examining as well, you know, I don't think integrity, genuine integrity, doing the right thing, even when there's no one there to see you do it, is a particularly big priority in our society. And I think I had to address this in myself massively. And I remember when I first started really doing the right thing. I mean, gosh, that's a whole other conversation of what is the right thing. But the thing that aligns with your own beliefs, values, morals, when I started to really, and sometimes really doing that does take that little bit of extra time to be that bit more mindful. But I remember when I started to really practice that in my own life, and it has its own rewards. I'm like, that's where feeling really good about yourself as a person comes from. Holy moly, who knows? It's not because of some accolade or something external. But I think these are all the things that, you know, not just myself, but us as a society are coping with, burdened with, facing as challenges. That's, And
you talked about the healing. You were left with two choices. Shall I carry on, or shall I go down the healing path? What often happens when you go down that healing path, it opens up an opportunities that you never thought would be in your radar.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? And it's like, mostly we think external. Okay, I have this business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Right? It's all external. But there's a lot of trash, like I call it the trash can and the rotten tomato theory, where we need to clear this, and there's actually diamonds inside, and those diamonds radiate outward, and you can be creative and be a badass business person, however you want your business to look.
You can do whatever you want. It just has to align with your joy.
Yes.
That's why it's different for every person. And that's why every time I see anything that's like, we have the formula to happiness, buy this course, do this new methodology, do this new training that I've come up with and trademarked, and all of those things, it's one size doesn't fit all.
No.
But if you find whatever it is that makes you feel like, yes, that, go and follow it, because it's on that path that the synchronicities, and like you say, the right people, the right thing at the right time, weirdly, and it's not weirdly. And the more you start to practice it, you're like, oh, it's not weird. That's how it works. But at first, it's not one of those where you have to believe it before you see it. You have
to experience it.
Yeah, it's not a case of I'll see it when I believe it. You have to believe it and head on that trajectory.
And then you experience it.
And then you start to experience it. And it is hard to trust because we are definitely not, it's not ingrained in us from the get-go to really follow that feeling of joy and bliss. We're actually, I feel like, certainly at school, I was trained to believe that if I follow bliss and joy too much, I'm going to end up in a mess, off the rails, a life misspent. You're like, yeah, it's an inverted philosophy.
You talk about yoga quite a lot, and you are the yoga teacher. What are the benefits to it?
The benefits of yoga. I see yoga as a 6,000-year-old science of how to be a happy, healthy human. But I think when we're examining it now, we're starting to understand why it's actually so very healing for such a myriad of different problems, from physical to mental to emotional. Why does it seem to heal across the board? I think now we're starting to have the actual understanding of what's going on. So, for example, if someone is, again, living with the effects of a dysregulated nervous system or the effects of trauma, that will have had an impact on their left brain. So as we know, anything that, promotes left and right brain activity together is going to be helpful for, bringing everything sort of back into harmony, back online together. So that's not just yoga, but obviously in yoga, there is a lot of left arm, right leg, left turn to the left. Like there's a lot of, and it's gentle. So it gives you time to kind of feel into those things. We also know that, humming, chanting, singing strengthens vagal tone, which is also something that is affected when we're living with trauma. Similarly, the sound of your own voice, singing, chanting, humming, strengthens the vestibular system in the ears, which is the system, again, very heavily impacted when we have trauma. If somebody, let's say there's two people standing on the side of the road, one person is fine and the other person is, or let's say regulated, and the other person has PTSD and an exhaust backfires, you're going to get two very different responses from those individuals. One's going to possibly just, react accordingly, and the other person's going to react like a bomb's gone off. And that's where that's where it comes in, like, that person's got something wrong with them. And it's like, well, actually, they are experiencing that sound. It's not in their head that sound was louder and more overwhelming. It actually was, because all the little receptors in their ears are wired and alert and ready. So they're actually having a different experience of the same thing. So yes, anything that strengthens the vestibular system, increases vagal tone, balances the left and right hemispheres of the brain, obviously has all the normal physical benefits of yoga, from, toning muscles, flexibility, kind of fluidity at the joints, all of the normal, regular physical health benefits that you'd expect. But also, obviously, like you were saying, it assists us in that delayering. It is a journey of the self to the self through the self. You cannot spend any amount of time, and obviously most yoga classes are, 60 minutes or whatever it might be, in your own inner world. Like with the yin yoga, you're not doing 5 breaths in a pose and then moving on to the next pose. You're getting into a posture and then you're staying there for 3 to 5 minutes. And sometimes this is a very inward journey. So you're really getting to know parts of yourself that you were previously unfamiliar with, especially when we come to sit in a hold that, we don't sit with pain in yoga, but some yin yoga postures are challenging. They come with a certain amount of discomfort. And then just sitting with that, knowing that you are committed to not moving for a certain period of time. Obviously you can move, there's nothing to stop you from moving. But if you're, going into that stillness, you're really going into a place that a lot of our society are trying to avoid all the time, with a variety of distractions. It's what happens when you just go really still and there's nothing to distract you. What comes up? What emotions are you faced with? What are the ones that really, the reasons why we are keeping ourselves distracted all the time? What are those, and what's in you? And I think eventually, after many hours spent doing that, you end up in a position where you're like, I am no longer afraid of anything that is on the inside of me. And that's a different
That's why you find those diamonds inside of you,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
What about the people who aren't comfortable with even sitting with themselves, even for 5 minutes, right? They're always on the go. And suddenly they decide, that's it. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to put my phone away. I'm going to put this. I'm going to go do yoga. And once they sit down, fidgety. What can they do?
I mean, I think that is something that is part of the process. I remember the first time I ever went to a meditation class. It was actually at the Buddhist Centre in Manchester. And I remember the exercise was, we were literally just sat with our eyes closed, mentally counting our breath. So inhale, exhale, just count 1. And the exercise was to notice how many you'd got to before you realised that your thoughts had gone somewhere else entirely. I think mine was like 1 or 2. And I was like, oh, wow. And that wasn't a big thing in the class, but internally, what I realised was how chatty my mind actually was. That even when I tried to say, yeah, it was uncomfortable, of course. But that was the learning. That was what I needed to learn. You know, the first time I was ever put in a pigeon pose in a yin yoga class and left for 5 minutes, I thought it was a joke. I was like, first of all, I was sort of like, well, she's obviously kidding because that can't be right. Then that turned into anger of like, what a ridiculous woman. Like, I don't like this class. I don't like this teacher, blah, 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 blah. Then I dropped in. I don't remember the next minute or two. And then obviously when I was brought out the pose and I was all right and that discomfort had subsided, I was sort of like, oh, I think I might have overreacted there a little bit during that first 60 seconds of that posture. I wonder what else I'm overreacting to, where if I just gave it a minute, it might be all right, or at least that intensity of that discomfort might soften or change into something else or transmute into something else. And it just made me immediately, just in that one pose, just that one instance, made me realize like, I am a highly reactive person. That is ridiculous. Whereas if somebody had have sat me down and said, you know, you're highly reactive, I'd have been like, I am not. It's a different thing. Discovering something privately in your own internal world, yourself, where you can very comfortably sort of accept that.
Admit it.
In your own time. In a way that your nervous system can cope with is absolutely imperative. Really, really imperative. And I think we get that from introspection. And yeah, and I think solitude is so important. Along with yoga and meditation, and I found as important as community. On the opposite side of the spectrum.
So you got to have that balance as well. And sometimes it's all you think you have the balance, but then it gets misplaced here. There's here. This shift needs to be here, there.
That's another reason why I love yoga, because it is the middle way. So it's constantly a reminder that usually the right thinking, sensible, holistic, rational, I won't say logical because that means like more of a mind sort of decision, but it's somewhere in the middle of these two extremes, whatever it is that we're dealing with in our lives. And I kind of, that's why I need that philosophy, is because it reminds me that the middle way, if I'm ever going too far one way or the other, if I'm going too far down, one path, I'm like, no, I think that might be overly spiritualized and lost in the mire. Whereas I also can recognize if I'm getting too stuck in, the third dimensional kind of daily grind, and it's having that discernment.
You feel it. Once you start doing this work on yourself, you start feeling it really on even the subtle level. You feel it really heavily, because it's like, what I was told when I'm doing Reikis, and I was told that I'm more active here from heart base to crown, whereas my lower chakras are completely...
We're a little ungrounded, are we?
Yeah, I'm definitely not grounded. There's a feeling blocked there. So there's something going on. So I've been like working, and that makes sense. Your lower chakras are more materialism, like business, money, that kind of aspect. Whereas the spiritual, but I've got so much knowledge. Yeah,
this is a massively, obviously, again, as all with everything, it's a hugely nuanced topic. And the 7 chakra system is very much a kind of a Western kind of import. There's obviously a gazillion chakras all over the body if we're going down that route, but Yes, I think it's, the lady that wrote the book Eastern Body, Western Mind, Anadea Judith, she was a yogi, but also an MD, like a psychologist. And she describes the 7 chakra system as useful a framework as any that she's ever found in Western medical practice for understanding the self. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So even if we're not taking it as anything more literal than a framework for understanding ourselves, absolutely that, you would have, working off the 7 chakra system, if your 3 lower ones would be your chakras of matter, of physical matter, and your 3 upper chakras would be your chakras of spirit. The heart chakra is the one that obviously bridges these 2 worlds together. And I think you see that also we're obviously all full spectrum human beings. We have all of those. But I think what's demonstrated to us, and certainly in our media and in our archetypes, are people that are either trapped at one end of that spectrum or the other. So we have these archetypes of the, cold, calculated, disconnected, heartless, kind of capitalist, good at job, good at work, plenty of money, not particularly spiritual, doesn't really believe in anything hokey pokey. That's an archetype. Over here, we've got the penniless artist. So inspired, but floating around with, struggling with employment, these are the archetypes. And I'm like, where are our good examples in our media of very grounded people that are also very connected spiritually? I don't think we're given examples of that. So when you're growing up and you're kind of picking your characters that you like, and we're doing that subconsciously all the time. I'm not sure that we have the best role models for full spectrum. Hopefully we'll see that develop as people,
because there's a lot, like you said, there's that divide. And
they are only archetypes. I'm not, they're just the most extreme examples of, stereotypes, if you like, of those. But I think that's what you'd be working with. You'd be working with somebody that's perhaps disconnected completely from the lower chakras, maybe because the body wasn't, maybe the physical body wasn't a safe place to be.
Yeah.
Maybe this is an easier way to retreat. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe that develops then into, as you say, different types of habits and personalities. Maybe for a different reason, somebody's disconnected up there and has ended up but I think we're doing ourselves a disservice to think that we have to pick a camp.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we don't have to pick a camp. Because I think that was my early journey, was like, oh, I'd definitely been this person. And now I'm becoming this person. And it's like, but you don't want to get lost up there either. Sort of believing, oh, I don't know, I'm not going to go into that actually. But I'm not, I think,
It's like you each time you integrate, but not stay there for long.
Yeah.
Once you've integrated, move.
It's the middle way, isn't it?
Integrated, move.
Yeah.
Right? Not staying stuck.
Yeah.
So what happens is like, even spiritually speaking, like, spiritually, there's a side of like, money's like, oh, money's not good. We don't want money. We're like, we'll give you free stuff. We do this with this. So realizing actually, no, it's okay to say, no, I'm a spiritual being and I want money.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it? I think maybe you do have to look at your own spirituality if the desire for money and is leading the way. But the way I see it, even here with the Resonance Centre, like the Resonance Centre is a purely altruistic. Me as an individual, I've financially taken a bit of a hit to get it on its feet. I really believe in the systemic change and the benefits it can have to people. I hate the thought of somebody being trapped at home, not feeling like there's nothing they can do about the problem. It's awful. So I'm like, if my life can have any purpose whatsoever, let's do this. I already had this building. That was a hangover from old life. If it can have any purpose, let's do this. The only reason that I would ever have to have an eye on the money side of things, the commercial side of things, and that is because we live in a monetary system. I can't ring my energy supplier and be like, I have absolutely no money to offer you this month at all, but I have so much love and kindness to give. Is there any way we could do an exchange? If I could do that, great. But we're not there yet. Maybe this monetary system will collapse. Maybe there'll be something else that follows on from it, but we're not there yet. So there is just that very day-to-day reality of that has to be dealt with and addressed, whether it's what you want to focus on or you don't. And the truth of it is that the more financially abundant a person or an organization or whatever, the more they can actually do and tangibly achieve in the world. Like the more money that the Resonance Centre has, the more good it can do in the world, the more free classes we can put on for people so that everyone has access to daily regular?
There's another one that is fame. Fame is a big one, you know, side by side with money, where even me, like, you know, when I'm winning these awards and doing all this stuff, there are a couple of people who's like, well, you know, you're just doing it for fame. You're doing it for
okay,
this.
yeah,
you're doing
yeah.
it for that.
I see what you mean.
No, but how am I going to make a difference? I'm not going to make a difference sitting inside my my house.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
There needs to be a bit of attention on you for people to connect with you, and then that's a wide
it's also knowing yourself. It's realizing your gifts. So it's like, you are very good at talking and communicating and being articulate. So am I. They're kind of where our skills fall. So it's just like, we're all going to have our own part to play in the change that's coming along, but it's finding what you're good at and kind of applying that. So I never really wanted to be the face of the Resonance Centre. I just wanted the Resonance Centre to be its logo. And I actually, as a yoga teacher, never really did the whole promoting myself. Probably would have been a very unsuccessful yoga teacher. Never really did the self-promotion. And certainly I don't think it's wrong. And I understand completely, like, obviously, if that's what you're doing and that's how you're earning a living, you have to promote in that way. It's not that yoga teachers are toxic, taking pictures of themselves or anything like, you know, that is what you would have to do. But it did feel, for me, a little bit like, gosh, it's just me taking pictures of my own body in different shapes. And then sort of, it didn't feel right for me. But once I had that triangle logo to hide behind, I became amazing at like promoting it and doing that sort of stuff. But then we got to a stage where we were actually applying for something with some funding for the drums that we now have. And I had to make a video. And as part of it, we had to try and, I think public could vote. So I had to put that video out on social media. And it was singularly the most successful post that we'd ever posted in 2 years or whatever it was of the Resonance Centre. And then someone said to me, you need to do lives. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I've kind of been avoiding being like really at the forefront of it. It's not really about me. Do you know what I mean? But then I did them, or I did a few. And the feedback starts coming in, and then you see that like more and more people are like, oh, I saw this. We would like to come to the centre. And I'm like, so it's actually garnering support for the centre. It's actually, I'm going to have to just step into that and do that. Mm-hmm. So if anyone says to me now, like, oh, you're on social media and you're doing it, it's like, yeah, because I kind of got to a stage where that would be necessary for the centre to succeed. That's literally the only reason. Yeah, it was never about making a name for me.
Yeah, exactly. It was the integrate and move. So it's led you to you needed to do the social media in order to do the next level, to move.
That's it. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
You have to. Sometimes
I'd be very happy to hide in the background. Like the first time I realized that wasn't happening was when I went to teach a yoga class that I'd always taught. But someone came up to me at the end of the yoga class and was like, are you the lady with the centre on the... And I was like, oh no, I've been recognised. Like my years as the anonymous yogi with a bun in, just shuffling in and out of other people's events are sort of over, really. Certainly in the local kind of area where, you know, the usual suspects do crop up at the sound healings, the yoga studios, you know, that sort of thing. But it is what it is, you know, I'm not, it was never about self-promotion, but if I end up being recognised as the person that runs the Resonance Centre, that just can't be helped. And I'm okay with it, to be fair. I am proud of what's been created, but it definitely was never, I was very happy to sort of hide in the background at one time. Yeah. But if it serves the res well and it's moving us forwards, then yeah, it's totally fine. Which is interesting actually, because as you gather from my old life and going to drama school, at one time, being famous or being on the stage or being in was very important to me. Mm. And then I discovered who I actually was. And I was like, oh, I think I'd actually loathe that lifestyle. That's, again, totally not what would have actually suited me, sort of thing. So yeah, thank goodness I didn't
just like
pursue
channel that. It's like, okay, I already have that skill to attract the people. And I've also done this bit of a healing or whatever the journey that I've been on. If you merge those two together in a way, you could do quite a lot of good.
Absolutely. And also without old life, I wouldn't own this building. Yeah. Which means that I couldn't have done what nobody else would have done, which is give the Resonance Centre its space for at least a few years so it could get on its feet. A CIC, normally you have to build it over 3 to 5 years before you would have enough credibility or traction to then maybe acquire space through, some sort of like asset transfer or something. Because I had the space, we were able to kind of hit the ground running, get the doors open, start delivering the services. So, but that was only facilitated by what I used to do and the fact that I was such a crazy, like, go, acquisition through my 20s. Without that, we wouldn't be doing this now and we wouldn't be sat here. And yeah, so it's not that old life, old you was wrong. It's part of the journey and part of the development of how you end up being who you are now, isn't it? So it's just, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So where do you see, we're going to get on to the rapid fire questions,
okay.
But where do you see the resonance center? What's your vision?
Personally, I think that every borough in the country should have a resonance center. I think it should be a centralized hub to any community, that they have a holistic center that operates on that with a slightly different focus to our normal medical model. I think there's also a lot of people that either through medical trauma or just through their own experiences have lost a lot of faith and trust in doing things the normal way. And maybe they might find something in doing things a different way. It's giving an alternative. If the general population were really, really super responsible for their day-to-day well-being, let's be realistic. In a point of accident or emergency, we absolutely take me to a Western hospital where they've got the equipment. Like if I get hit by a bus, don't hover around me with a sage stick. It's not the time for that. But my day-to-day well-being, I think that's something that we can take a lot of responsibility for. It's not to say that we don't need, the doctors, the Western medicine approach. Not at all. I will be seeking that out if something goes wrong, or if what I'm doing isn't cutting the mustard. But realistically, I haven't had to see my own doctor in 8 years because there hasn't been a cause to. Any mild ailments that I have had have been, something that I could deal with in my own kitchen. And they tend to be less severe anyway because the baseline is pretty good. So yeah, it's the middle way, isn't it? It's the middle way. I should have just said that. It always comes back to that anyway.
I think it's really beautiful because what you've created here is really beautiful to see, because you have this community come together and it's all different walks of life as well.
Really?
Yeah. I'm actually really excited. Obviously, we're going to be working together. So it's like, I'm really excited for all of this.
It was nice to have you here on New Year as well.
Yeah.
For the big sober rave. That was great. That was really, really good fun.
Yeah, that was really good. All right, let's get into the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Go. I am.
Are you ready?
I am.
Right. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. What is your definition of life, God, or universe?
Rapid fire. That's the biggest topic ever. Like, okay.
Ticking.
Right, really quick. What's God? So I personally believe in Prisca Theologia. There's one truth. I think that most belief systems, most religions are pointing towards a centralized truth. They've found many different expressions of how that comes to be. I believe really that what we're referring to when we say God, I'm not going to call it the universe either, because I still think that's too small. It's the totality, it's pure consciousness, that from which all that has ever been created has sprung from. Yeah, an energy, a frequency.
Love it. What do you think happens when you die?
Do you know, I'm not actually completely resigned to thinking, no, that's what I think definitely does happen. I think it's interesting because I don't think anyone knows. I don't think it's something that, it's certainly nothing that anyone can prove. What I think is really interesting about Buddhism is that it's one of the very few belief systems that doesn't really offer an explanation as to what happens. I mean, I suppose traditionally, and obviously the fact that the Buddha's meant to have broken the cycle of perpetual incarnation means that there obviously is some sort of a belief that there would be incarnation. But the actual philosophy of living, by a Buddhist philosophy doesn't really pay much regard to what goes on beyond the grave. It's simply saying that, you'll get to that. You'll find that out at some point. What happens is, what matters is to live a normal life and to alleviate suffering where possible. And I really like that because I'm like, yeah, you know what? We can get so very caught up in what's going to happen after I die. And it's like, well, you'll find out. That's the next bit of the journey. But right now, don't miss your entire human experience contemplating what comes next. You know, this is, maybe you'll be floating around as an ethereal ball of spirit, and you'd wish that you had arms and legs and a nervous system so you could experience things again. And that's what you have right now. So again, let's not let the moment that we're in pass us by with something else. But I think we're energy. I think the spark of life, the soul inside the vehicle, to some degree, it is energy, which can neither be destroyed nor created. So I guess that essence will be transmuted into something else. Now, you can look at that scientifically and sort of think, well, that energy might become a rock, a tree, a piece of soil, something else, carbon-based, whatever. Or you can look at it as that is a reincarnation, you know, whether or not the little ball of energy that is inside Madiha, whether that comes back as another person, a whole other person or not. I think these are very, very interesting topics. These are what we need to get down to.
We need a whole podcast
good sat-sangs about these topics. Yeah.
Well, what's the lesson that took you the longest to learn?
I'm still learning it. I don't know. I'll let you know when I've finally got my head around it. I'll let you know. Lessons longest to learn. Well, I think it's almost that idea of the middle way, that there isn't a right way, that the right way is to stay in the present moment, constantly discerning correctly. That is the only way, because everything's constantly changing. So if we think, this is the right way to go about life now, but if you stick rigidly to that way and then the circumstance or something else changes, if you're not staying present and reassessing and rediscerning what needs to shift or alter. So I think that was probably my hardest lesson, because we do like a definite, don't we? It makes us feel safe as humans. We like a framework, whether it's 7 chakras or 10 commandments, or we like a framework. It makes us feel safer. And I think that learning that actually the only right way, if you like, that there can be, is to be in the present moment, gauging things appropriately. Yeah.
I'm fully in present moment when?
I'm fully in the present moment when? Well, it happens in a few instances. It definitely obviously happens on my yoga mat when I'm in flowing and I'm not in my mind. It happens in conversation. And I think that's quite a personal thing. We're both quite verbal, aren't we, really? So it's, but yeah, if I get really deep into a good conversation with someone, absolutely forget time and all the rest of it. That's, flow and Yeah,
brilliant. Love it. How can people contact you?
You can contact us via Instagram, Facebook, or directly at info@theresonancecentre.co.uk. And I do see every single one of those emails myself. So
amazing.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch.
Oh, thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for being here and creating soul awakenings here at Second Home. I love it. I'm so buzzing off this collaboration. It's cool.
Yeah, and I found obviously a lot deeper stuff about you as well, which is absolutely amazing. I think this is what it is. It's not about the external, hi, we're just doing business together, or we're just actually really getting to know who your business partner is.
Yeah, it's nice. It's lovely.
Yeah, so thank you so much for
thank you.
Sharing, being vulnerable in certain areas. So it's just, thank you.
Easier to be vulnerable when you've got a good hairdo, right? Pass me the glue.
Is my hair okay?
I do love that element of this, though. I really do.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of our award-winning podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. You can follow us on Instagram, Madiha Sosan 1, and YouTube, Madiha Sosan, for more content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your family and friends, and let us know your thoughts on social media. A special thanks to our sponsors, the Resonance Centre, for making it possible to use this beautiful space, and Razia's Bonton Salon for my amazing shiny hair and makeup. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Thank you once again for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.